fare.
Canto 4.
Canto 4.
Canto 4. Who remembers what happened in the third canto?
Okay, I think we got to the river.
Mm-hmm.
And
You remember?
The boat is full.
Yeah.
Close.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's always full.
Hey, the boat's full.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Who else was there?
Karen.
Virgil's still there with Dante, and then this Chiron.
Yeah, Karen is there.
Sharon's
Okay,
there,
cool.
dude.
I was like, is that an Iliad character?
Yeah, what's his deal?
He is like the usher, the boatman.
Yes. Yeah, and what does and there's a large mass of other people there. What is their deal?
They're dead. They're suffering.
Yeah, they're like waiting in the line to get to hell. He just like beats them with his stick. And like, get on my boat.
Just crowding them in there.
And once again, Dante's like, hey, fam, who are all these people? And Virgil's like, don't worry about them. They suck. And then
Really
Dante gets scared again.
Like, don't even bother getting scared yet. You haven't even seen scary yet.
Yeah.
You know that feeling that you have? That's stupid. Stop feeling.
So we're going into Canto 4. This is the first circle. It's the borderland on the outside of hell. So hell is basically like this funnel, and it's just like a series of rings going all the way down to the funnel. And the first circle is like the outer rim of the funnel. And this is the unbaptized worthies. So people like Virgil, who are worthy of honor, but they didn't exist when people knew about God, so they don't get to go to heaven. And illustrious pagans. So it's again like, people who didn't have the opportunity to be saved, but are worthy of not being lower down in the levels. So let's go on our journey. A heavy thunderclap broke the deep sleep within my head, so that I roused myself, as would a person who is waked by force. And standing up erect, my rested eyes, I moved around, and with a steady gaze, I looked about to know where I might be. So basically, Dante wakes up. He got really scared, passed out. He wakes up and he's like, where am I? Truth is, I found myself upon the verge of pain's abysmal valley, which collects the thunder roll of everlasting woes. So dark it was, so deep and full of mist, that howsoever I gazed into its depths, nothing at all did I discern therein. So basically, he looks down, he sees this funnel, he knows it's there, but he tries to look down and see the lower levels, and he can't see a thing because it's just like misty and gross.
Into this blind world, let us now descend.
A poet who was death-like pale began. So we're in the area where all the, unsaved pagans are. Why do you think Virgil might be pale and death-like?
That's how he really looks.
So first of all, he's a shade. So he's technically basically a ghost. But he's also surrounded by all his homies, like all of the other poets that didn't get to go to heaven, and all of the people whose fate he shares. Like, this is where they're at. And this is basically where Virgil spends all of his time when he doesn't have somebody like Dante to tour guide around. So he's like this is his circle.
Like the Gryffindor common room for Dante.
That's the common room, dude.
I will be first, and thou shalt be second. So shalt second be.
Yeah, that's important.
And I, who of his color was aware, said,
how am I to come if thou take fright, who art wont to be my comfort when afraid?
The anguish of the people here below,
he said to me,
brings out upon my face the sympathy which thou dost take for fear. Since our long journey drives us, let us go.
So Virgil's like, I'm not scared. I care about my homies. I care about my bros. And like Dante's like, how am I supposed to go down into this creepy hell when you're scared of this place and we're only on the first circle? And Virgil's like, oh, I just care about my homies. Like, don't worry, I'm not scared. He's definitely scared because he's encountering his own fate. And he's like, this sucks. I'm going to be here forever, for eternity. But Virgil is sometimes a liar, and it's fine.
Virgil is sometimes a liar.
Virgil, enemy of the podcast.
Just like
Whoa,
Regina
dude. Damn.
Honestly. And Brad Pitt.
Okay, well, you can't.
It's fine. Brad Pitt's fine. I'm not.
Thank you.
Anyway.
That's my kids. Wow.
It's fine.
Wow. No.
Thus, he, being Virgil, set forth, and thus he had me enter the first of circles girding the abyss. Therein, as far as one could judge by listening, there was no lamentation, saving sighs, which caused a trembling in the eternal air. And this came from the grief devoid of torture felt by the throngs, which many were, and great, of infants and of women and of men. So there's no torture here. It's just all these people are really sad because they know they don't get to go to heaven and they are here for eternity. And they're like, this sucks. To me, then, my good teacher,
dost not ask what spirits these are, whom thou seest here. Now I would have thee know, ere thou go further, that these sinned not, and though they merits have, it is not enough, for they did not have baptism, the gateway of the creed believed by thee. And if before Christianity they lived, they did not with due worship honor God. And one of such as these am I myself. For such defects, and for no other guilt, were lost, and only hurt to this extent, that in desire we live deprived of hope.
So here we hear why Virgil is so sad and, why his face turned white. And if you think about the previous chapters when Dante was like, tell me about this situation. What's going on here? Who are these people? And Virgil was like, don't worry about it. None of these people matter. Now we're in that first circle and Virgil's like, yo, these people are good people and they never get to even think about getting to heaven. They have no hope of ever getting to heaven because they never praised God in life. And I'm one of them too. And we didn't do anything wrong. We were good people, but because we never had the opportunity to hear about God, we never get to go to heaven. And so like in this missive, Virgil's like it's expressing his sadness of like, it's really unfair that these people aren't saved. And in some ways, Dante is trying to express that because of the political situation at the time in Italy, there's also a similar sadness in that because we don't have a good guide in the Pope, many people in Italy will never be saved because they don't have that guidance that they need in order to go to heaven.
Which, to be honest, is like probably the greatest criticism of the Pope. It's like, you're literally not sending people to heaven. You are the block.
Right. And the Pope is supposed to be that shepherd who helps souls get to heaven. Like that's his whole job. And Dante's like, you're over here so worried about grabbing land and gaining political power and gaining money and getting art and getting influence. And you're not getting people to heaven, which is your whole job. Let the emperor worry about getting land. Let the emperor worry about consolidating an empire. Like your job is to get people into heaven and you're not doing it. You're kicking people out of Florence.
You're kicking people out of Florence. That's your biggest fault.
I mean, that's what Dante cares about. Dante's like, we got so close. Like we thought things were going to be good for a while. And then I got kicked out of Florence and that sucks.
Now the whole world is doomed.
So with this context, with this understanding that Dante is thinking about all of his compatriots, thinking about himself, thinking about his country with this lens of like, all of these people will never be saved because we don't have the spiritual guidance we need. You can understand now why hearing Virgil say this, as we move on, he says, great sorrow filled my heart on hearing this because I knew of people of great worth who in that borderland suspended were. I know people who were never saved.
Tell me, my teacher, tell me, thou my lord.
I then began, through wishing to be sure about the faith which conquers every error.
Came any ever by his own deserts, or by another hence, who then was blessed?
So right here, Dante is saying, did Jesus ever come through here? Like, did anybody ever come through here and collect all of the worthy souls and bring them with him as he like saved them to heaven? And he, Virgil, who understood my covert speech, who understood what I was asking, and I didn't need to make it that clear, even though I was being like, I was talking my way around it. Virgil replied,
To this condition I was come but newly, when I saw a mighty one come here, crowned with the sign of victory. From hence he drew the earliest parent's shade, and that of his son Abel, that of Noah and Moses, the lawgiver and obedient, Abram.
Good old
I'm
Abraham.
prepared to say Abraham.
It's J.J. Abrams, dude.
Abram, the patriarch, and David, king, Israel, with both his father and his sons, and Rachel too, for whom he did so much, and many others. And he made them blessed. And I would have thee know that earlier than these, there were no human spirits saved.
So Dante basically comes in and he wants to know, like, when Jesus was crucified and then reborn and then went to heaven afterwards, like, did he bring anybody here with him? Did he save any of these souls, even though they weren't, whatever? And Virgil's like, yeah, actually, there was one time when this dude came through and he was like really cool and he was crowned with the sign of victory. Like, he was glowing, and like there was this like really awesome dude who came through and he like grabbed all these bros and was like, oh, Adam from the Garden of Eden, not Eve, by the way, she's not allowed in heaven, but Adam comes, and Abel, not Cain, because he murdered Abel, that's fine, Noah, Moses, like all of these Old Testament people that were like these really righteous, notable figures in the Bible. Jesus came through and was like, y'all come with me, like I'm gonna bring you to my dad's house, like we're gonna have a party up there, it's cool.
Let's grow up with fantasy football.
I will say this feels like a little bit of a retcon, like almost like he published this first and then everyone was like, wait, doesn't that mean that Rachel couldn't be in heaven in the first scene? And then he was like, oh no, oh shit, I have to fix that. And then goes back and is like, Jesus took Rachel from hell also, by the way.
Yeah, so basically it's like, well, these people knew of God, but they didn't know of Jesus, so they couldn't be Catholic, but they were religious, like they were Jewish, and Jewish people don't get to go to heaven. But these people were so devout and so dedicated to God that Jesus was like, well, you love my dad, so it's cool, you can come with me to heaven.
But only you.
It's so weird. Like, I get that, but all of these people in the Bible had followers and such that like listened to them and believed them as preachers and prophets and such. I mean, it's just weird that I get it, but it's like, why didn't he take anybody that Moses brought to the promised land, for instance? Or like,
The boat was full, dude.
It was full, dude.
So it does say that he brought many others with him, but it sounds like he was really gathering up all of the notable people that did the most and was like, who deserves to go to heaven the most? Prior to this, no human spirits were saved. So prior to Jesus being resurrected, there was like everybody just existed in this place, like in this outer circle of hell or like lower. But once Jesus was saved, he brought some people with him. And after that, people were able to go to heaven and purgatory. But like, it really is very much that like medieval perspective on religion, where Dante was like, well, here's my current understanding and the current societal understanding of how things work and religion and stuff. And like everybody would be super upset if Dante was like, well, it's tough. Moses isn't in heaven because he was born before Jesus was born. So like, that's tough because everybody's like, oh, Moses is like a holy person. So.
Exactly. And also like Dante was obsessed with the term like the true good. And the people listed here just because of the story. And I imagine at the time they had a certain social meaning. I mean, obviously, I don't exactly know what social meaning was during that time in Italy of these specific group of people. But I know for a fact, like Abel, Moses, Abram, these are all people that, according to the stories, were pure. And Italians were obsessed with that idea of pure. So any drop of bad doing would be considered, what is that called? Like not punishable, but it would be considered some level of guilt. And I think what Dante is trying to convey is like these people were so pure before that Jesus gave them a little like go to heaven for free pass, like prime real estate, but everyone else wasn't pure enough.
Prime real estate.
Well, and it's interesting that it's all people from the Bible that he noted, because you'd think like, well, Virgil was a pretty cool dude. Like all of these people were pretty cool dudes. Like, why don't they deserve to go? And it's all people who were like very focused on praising, trusting, believing in God. So even though they weren't Christian and they weren't saved through Christ, they were still very religious. And so it's only people that like had that religious background that were able to be saved, even with Jesus's power. So Jesus wouldn't have been able to save anybody who had come earlier, like before they knew about God. So he wouldn't have been able to save any of those like classic poets or anybody else, like, outside of the Bible.
It doesn't seem fair. And so my question also is like, Jesus shows up well after Adam, for instance, and all of these people, obviously, like, because he's related to all of them and they're all his ancestors. So anyway, these, like, Noah died and God was like, cool, go to hell. Did he invent heaven when Jesus died? Like, is that what happened?
So when Jesus died, so heaven, like it was just God chilling with all his angel friends in heaven, and like it just existed as a place. And when Jesus died, Jesus was responsible for taking on the responsibility of human sin. And so once Jesus died, then humans were able to get into heaven, because before that, like, have you guys seen The Good Place? Where it's like only if it like equals out, where you do more good than bad in the world, like you're able to go to heaven. Mm-hmm. Jesus came in and was like, I'll take it all on credit. I will take care of all your sins. Don't worry about it. I got this. I'll spot you. You can go to heaven, and I will die I will be sacrificed as a God, as a sacrificial lamb, so that everybody else can go to heaven, as long as you're good enough. Like I can't do it all. But if you believe in me, if you accept my gift that I gave you, if you trust in me, if you trust in God, like it's good. We're fine. I'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. But if you're like particularly sinful, then it's like, well, I can only do so much. I can't, I'm not going to take all these sinners into heaven. I still only want people who are worthy to get into heaven and hang out in my like party house with my dad and all my angel friends.
You're with my dad, just going out with my dad.
But like heaven existed before, and it was just the realm of God. And then through Jesus's sacrifice, humans were finally able to go there. So like when Virgil specifically states before that no human spirits were saved, it's really distinctive of like no human spirits were saved, but there were lots of spirits in heaven, and there were lots of spirits that were able to avoid hell. It just wasn't human ones.
Okay, so it was like no humans were allowed in hell, and then Jesus changed that. It wasn't just like, you didn't know about Jesus, Noah, because he's not going to exist for 3,000 years. You're so dumb. Like, it wasn't like that.
You're so dumb.
Yeah.
Stupid Noah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, and it's like, because Noah essentially like did everything God wanted him to and was super holy and whatever, it's like
he was chill. He
was fun. Like Jesus didn't have to work too hard to get him to go, especially because he was very devout. But all of these other people that were like, had no guidance whatsoever, like these, basically all the people listed from the Bible were people that without any guidance whatsoever lived that holy life that in Dante's time, the Pope would have like taught people how to do. But the people that existed before, the people that existed outside of this, the people that didn't have any guidance and didn't just like somehow luck into being what was necessary to get into heaven, like sucks to suck, but like it doesn't matter that you didn't have a teacher, like you still fail the exam.
Right. It's like I want to kind of ask about that. Like, so the whole deal is that there's an original sin that every person carries, right?
Right.
So in the beginning, we're all sinners.
Yeah.
And that sin, is that the sin of Eve, Adam, apple business?
Yes.
So by Jesus saving Adam, does he semi-nullify that? Or is that just like a weird like publicity move? Because like that's the part that I'm
the
kinda
original sin was Eve only. Like the original sin was
Mhm.
Eve eating the apple and tempting Adam to eat the apple. Adam was a victim in the story,
confused.
supposedly.
Mhm.
And he was just like, oh, my girlfriend telling me to eat this apple. I guess I should. She said it tastes good.
Mhm. I see. So Adam, like the victims were saved too. Victims of, I guess, grace.
Yeah. Well, it's like Adam lived the best life that he could have possibly lived without having any teacher and like was devout. And as soon as he ate the apple and realized what he'd done, he was like, God, I'm so sorry that I ate the apple. I know you said not to, but Eve handed it to me and I didn't know it was the wrong apple. And like, please forgive me. Whereas Eve was like, I don't know. The snake told me to do it. It looked good. Like, I don't know.
It looked good. I want some apple.
I'm not sorry. Now I know that I have to wear clothes.
Sorry, not sorry.
Really direct lesson they got there.
Oh man.
Fun
Trigger the whole.
Don't be naked.
Don't be naked, dude. Yeah, they triggered like 2,000 years of sexism just in that one moment.
Mhm.
Phenomenal. I guess like all the people that did end up going to heaven were all victims to some extent, right?
Well, yeah. So Cain was the first murder victim, and then Rachel. What was Rachel's deal?
Virgil was married to Israel, and they gave birth to Joseph. And Joseph, with the Technicolor Dreamcoat and such, went on, and that's the line of Jesus. That's Jesus's bloodline. Is the early part
I
of the
see.
Bible.
So Jesus just nepotism. Oh, man.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Heaven's sounding more and more like a company.
I
The son
mean,
of the father. Yeah.
it all is like, if it were like human politics, it would all be very weird because it's like, oh, like you like me, you're obsessed with me, so I'm gonna let you into my party. But it's very much like influencers land where it's like, oh, you like retweeted everything that I tweeted and you like shared all of my posts. So like, I guess you're invited to my party.
Right. Oh man, the politics is still very strong at this time. See, I wonder, like, so this specific part, I wonder if it actually was meant to be criticism rather than just a list of random names.
I think it was like, I think these were all people from the Bible that Dante admired, more or less.
Oh, that would make sense, I guess.
They're like probably the biggest characters of the Old Testament, I would say.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably just like
Like the only names I would know, because anyone else I'd be like, what the
yeah.
You know, realistically, like mostly it was just Dante trying to cover his butt where he was like, you know, I know people are going to be mad if I say that all these historical figures from the Bible aren't in heaven. So I'm just going to find a way to make it happen. And he just kind of writes it in.
I love
It's
the
also-
vibe of like Virgil seeing Jesus but not knowing who it is. Just being like, oh, like this dude came through once. I don't know, probably not important.
It like shiny
Isn't
and
that
had
great?
like a V on his head. Like, I don't know.
He looked really cool, and they just took some dudes and left. So he just actually witnessed kidnapping of the most important dudes in the entire area, and he was like, "All right."
Well, and he says, so he calls him a mighty one, which is an interesting language to use when describing Jesus, because it's like he was spiritually mighty. And so Virgil must have had some way of knowing that just from seeing him.
Or maybe he was just like ripped in heaven,
Someone's
just
like-
like yoke Jesus,
Yeah, like how much can you lift? You're like,
like King of
spiritually
Gains came through.
mighty.
Did he just pick up all of these dudes? It was just like, all
He
right,
was just like one arm, like yo, let's go.
Adam on his shoulder.
He was like, yo.
He's like, all right, everybody, sit on my biceps. Come on, let's
Sit on
go.
my
We're going to
biceps.
heaven.
There we go. Abel, you go on my pecs. Let's go, bro.
I'm gonna give you a piggyback ride to
Oh,
heaven. Let's go.
Jesus. You know how buff Jesus pulled through. And he was like, he was a mighty one, dude. He lifted
did.
so much.
Got
I love it.
like
Incredible.
baby
Okay, we have-
backpack.
This is a new ride for our amusement park. Buff Jesus,
Buff
the roller
Jesus.
coaster.
Yo, I would ride the hell out
Take a
of
ride
that.
on Jesus.
Riding the hell out of it.
I was gonna say, there are a lot of wrong things. It's like, oh, let's go ride Buff Jesus. Like, that's not gonna work.
Oh no.
Wasn't there like a Christian amusement park at some point? Sorry to
Oh
interrupt.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Noah's
Yeah,
Boat
we're
or
kind of
whatever.
creating the opposite though.
Yeah.
We're making a Dantesco hell themed amusement park.
That's hot.
I love it.
Mhm.
There's Buff
Yeah.
Jesus, the only way to get out of the amusement park. You
We
have to
should
run-
also put this one in Utah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right across, honestly, just right across the street. Might
It's
as well
like
use their
the,
parking lot.
it's like the hell houses from like, Southern Baptist tradition where it's like a haunted house, but it's just hell. And you're like, this is what happens if you have premarital sex. And they
No.
I don't know, shows like somebody being murdered over and over again. I don't know. I've never been to one.
That's probably okay.
Yeah, it's probably fine. I don't feel that bad about it.
Never know.
All right. Well, anyway, that was like a compelling discussion.
That ended in a
As
beautiful.
all of our discussions are here on Classics and Chill.
That's
No
true.
question. No
And if you
question.
want to know more about our amusement park, like, comment, and subscribe, and go watch video 3.
Exactly.
So Dante's just like casually like, but did Jesus save anybody? And Virgil's like, oh yeah, like all these chill Bible people, but like not
All
me,
this
so
chill.
that sucks. But like they're continuing to move throughout this whole conversation. So we continue. Because he talked, we ceased not moving on, but all the while we're passing through the wood I mean, of thickly crowded shades. So basically, he's walking through a forest, but it's not actually a forest because all of the trees are just people who exist in this circle of hell, just hanging out. Not far this side of where I fell asleep had we yet gone when I beheld a fire, which overcame a hemisphere of gloom. Somewhat away from it we were as yet, but not so far. But I could dimly see that honorable people held that place. So he's just like this fire with like this globe of warmth and light around it. So now Dante asks Virgil again.
Oh, thou that honorest both art and science, who are these people that such honor have that it divides them from the other's life?
And he to me,
The honorable fame which speaks of them in thy live world above, in heaven wins grace, which thus advances them.
and hereupon a voice was heard by me.
Do honor to the loftiest of poets. His shade, which had departed, now returns.
And when the voice had ceased and was at rest, 4 mighty shades I saw approaching us. Their looks were neither sorrowful nor glad. So again, Dante has a question for Virgil. He's like, and it feels like Dante's falling more into the honorifics of like, oh, Virgil, my greatest teacher, you're so incredible. I am so lucky to be around you. And who knows if he's doing this because he's surrounded by Virgil's homies or just because he's like, trying to.
Dante playing
Again.
politics, dude. He saw the game works, immediately explained it.
He's simping.
And he
He's
says,
stupid.
who are these people that are like so awesome that they're not in these lower circles of hell and that they're like seated apart at this campfire and they have a little bit of warmth and a little bit of light. And the light here probably also represents wisdom. It represents like logic and intelligence. And it also represents some reprieve from the like loneliness and the coldness of the rest of the circle. And Virgil says, well, they're people that you know about. They're famous people that still are famous even now. And even in heaven, they're pretty famous. Like they are here because even up in heaven, God knows about them, Jesus knows about them, and thinks that they're cool enough to not have to deal with hell. And then Dante hears one of those voices from those people sitting around the fire that says, do honor to the loftiest of poets. So it's somebody sitting around the fire that's like, check it out, it's Virgil. He's the coolest guy here.
Like, hey, Virgil's back. Yeah.
And so these four dudes start approaching Dante and Virgil. My kindly teacher then began to say,
Look at the one who comes with sword in hand before the 3, as if their lord he were. Homer, he is, the sovereign poet. Horace, the satirist, the one that cometh next. The third is Ovid. Lucan.
Lucan.
Loken.
Lucan is the last. Since each of them, Lucan is coming in last. Since each of them in common shares with me the title which the voice of one proclaimed, they do me honor, and therein do well.
Thus gathered I beheld the fair assembly of those the masters of the loftiest song, which soareth like an eagle o'er the rest. Virgil's like, these are all poets. It's Homer, who's kind of the boss of the group, Horace, Ovid, Lucan. So Homer is a Greek poet, and then Horace, Ovid, and Lucan, I believe, are Roman poets. And Virgil's like, they know what they're talking about because they're all poets. So when they say I'm the best poet, they mean it. Then having talked among themselves a while, they turned around to me with signs of greeting. And when he noticed this, my teacher smiled. And even greater honor still they did me, for one of their own company they made me, so that amid such wisdom I was sixth. Thus on we went as far as to the light, talking of things whereof is silence here becoming, even as speech was where we spoke. So again, Dante's like very self-centered humility, where he's like, well, I'm just reporting the things that have happened to me. And these great poets, Homer and Horace and Ovid and Lucan and Virgil, were like, yeah, you're a good poet too. You belong with all of us. But he was like, I'm so humble. I didn't even believe that I belonged with them, but he's writing this book. And then he's like, I'm not even going to tell you what we talked about because like, it's not even worth putting it to words. Like, it was so beautiful and wonderful and logical and great. Like, I can't even express it here.
I think like low key, all poets think they're the best.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly Dante, that's for sure. For sure.
We reached a noble castle's foot, 7 times encircled by high walls and all around defended by a lovely little stream. This last we crossed, as if dry land it were, through 7 gates with these sages I went in, and to a meadow of fresh grass we came. There people were with slow and serious eyes, and in their looks of great authority. They spoke but seldom and with gentle voice. We therefore to one side of it drew back into an open place so luminous and high that each and all could be perceived. There on the green enamel opposite were shown to me the spirits of the great, for seeing whom I glory in myself. I saw Electra with companions many, of whom I knew both Hector and Aeneas, and Caesar armed with shining falcon eyes. I saw Camilla with Penthesilea upon the other side, and King Latinus, who with Lavinia, his own daughter, sat. I saw that Brutus, who drove Tarquin out, Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia, and all alone I saw the Saladin. Then, having raised my brows a little higher, the teacher I beheld of those that know, seated amid a philosophic group. They all looked up to him, all honor him. There Socrates and Plato I beheld, who nearer than the rest are at his side. Democritus, who thinks the world chance-born, Diogenes, Anaxagoras, and Thales, Empedocles, Heraclitus, and Zeno. Of qualities I saw the good collector. Dioscorides, I mean. Orpheus I saw. Tully and Livy and moral Seneca. Euclid, the geometer, and Ptolemy. Hippocrates, Avicenna, Galen, Averroes, who made the famous comment. I cannot speak of all of them in full because my long theme drives me on so fast that oft my words fall short of what I did.
I have several questions. Oh my gosh.
So many.
This
So
is
many.
wild. Like the list of people that, first of all, the fact that Homer and Hector are here.
Yeah.
I
What?
wanted that conversation.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so Dante's just coming in with a big name drop, except he's not actually name dropping because this didn't actually happen to him because he didn't actually go to hell, but he's like, hey, check out all these cool dudes I saw.
Yeah, exactly.
But they contradict, like Orpheus. the myth of Orpheus is that he went into the underworld with Hades and then came back out. So if Orpheus is real, then so is Hades, and Hades rules the underworld, which contradicts the existence.
Right.
Well, but Aeneas is also here, and Aeneas also explored the underworld. And then Virgil, who wrote about Aeneas, is here with Aeneas.
Yeah, like what? I just want to spend
here
like,
because she had to measure shit.
I want to spend a whole book here, and
yeah, honestly, that's actually a great idea. I like that. Like amidst all these people, there's just Diogenes.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's trying to talk. Diogenes is just there being a dick to everyone and nonstop.
Plucking chickens and whatever.
Plucking chickens. That's what he's doing.
So if Hector's here, that means Achilles is not. Is he down lower?
That's a really good point, actually.
I believe Achilles may be in the circle of rage, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a while since I've read the full Inferno.
I don't remember.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I just know wherever he is, he's happy.
So Dante just spends like half this chapter just listing all these people that he saw, but he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you everybody that I saw because it's going to take too long. It's like, you could have just been like, everybody was there.
Yeah,
honestly,
everybody was there.
Everybody was there.
Dude, everyone was there. Like, where were you, dude?
Where were you?
Literally, everyone was there. I think this is actually my favorite part of the entire first part of the comedy. Of just like Dante fanficking. He's just like being full fanboy over every great person.
He's like standing out. He's like, let me tell you about all the cool dudes I know about from the classics I studied. And everyone's like, all right, Dante, chill. Like, we know, we all studied it too.
Right? Like, we all studied it. Come on.
Like, we could spend an entire episode just like exploring each one of these different key figures and like discussing each of them. But like, it's probably not worth it. Mostly it's just like, you know, Dante's like, everybody from every walk of life, like mathematicians, philosophers, doctors, all these different people like made it into the first circle of hell, and they're doing all right here. They're just sad because they can't go to heaven, and that's like what's important. And he could have just said that, but he needed to prove how much he knew about classics.
Yo.
Dante's a little bit of a like he just kind of wants everybody to know how smart he is.
So smart that Ovid and Homer think that he's the best poet.
Well, Virgil's the best poet, but they think that he's like on par with all of them, which we're reading Dante in 2021. So like he was a pretty good poet. He wrote this whole trilogy in Terza Rima where it was like, you know, he like had this interlocking rhyme scheme that went through this whole thing. And it was a metaphor for humanity, and it was a metaphor for politics, and it was a metaphor for everything. So like, he's not wrong. He's just an asshole.
He's just an asshole.
I hate that he's not wrong, I guess, because it's
which is like seeming to be like a theme in reading classics. So
he's not wrong. He's just an asshole.
Oh, look at this guy. He was so full of himself. Oh, but we're still reading.
Well, and it's entirely possible, like, given the ways that he, like, processed and understood things and discussed things, like, it's entirely possible that he was not neurotypical. And so it's possible that he was just like, yeah, I know how good I am. And he wasn't being cocky. He was just like, it was like a statement of fact to him. And it wasn't, you know, like, I think it's important to keep in mind that he might not have been neurotypical, and that also we exist in a different cultural context than he did. But to us, it kind of feels like he's being a dick. So Dante says, I cannot speak of all of them in full. I can't talk about everybody that I saw because my long theme, this whole work, drives me on so fast that oft my words fall short of what I did. The sixfold band now dwindles down to two. My wise guide leads me by a different path, out of the calm into the trembling air, and to a place I come where naught gives light. So they make it through this first circle, and they come all the way out from the calm air where everybody's just sighing because they're sad, and into trembling air where there's much more tension and there's some torture. And we'll see in the next chapter that there's also there's weather. and it's completely dark. There's no light. So that was Canto 4. Dante gets to meet a bunch of cool dudes.
Dante met a bunch of cool dudes.